about dynamic pricing. And You might have experienced it with trying to get a Uber ride, and then you experience a surcharge. Real time charge is another term that could be coming up. But what it is, if you don't know what it is that instead of having a fixed price for the service or product, it can change in real time. And the common excuse that can come up is this supply and demand, issue. But I know you're smarter than that. You can see that this isn't just with Uber rides and other ride sharing platforms, which again, there's not a whole lot of competition there. But it's with flights, hotels, event tickets. Um, so the thing that comes up with this is uh, what's interesting for the timing of when this happens. It's like or the theme is that can come up, which is it's extracting more money exactly when you have the fewest choices. So the worldview to remember, and I've shared it before for this show, is power and then rest of us. When you can filter your worldview in that way, uh, a lot of things that used to not make sense start to make a lot more sense for you. So the question we got to be asking ourselves is: this the right direction that we want to go for our country? Want to go towards for our country? Moving more into dynamic pricing. Welcome back to the show. Let's get into it. Before I go further with dynamic pricing, I have some corrections I want to make from yesterday's show, specifically with the tragic murder of Melissa Hortman and her husband in her home. I talked about that in the last story. I misspelled her or spoke her last name. I want to make sure I correct that for you. And then the yesterday's show, I also talked about how many people were charged for the child nutrition fraud scheme. I had originally said 38, and I don't know why. I was like looking at the number. I'm like, how did I say 38? I was like, I don't know what happened there, but it's 78 people that were charged. And I said that later on, but I want to make sure that that's corrected. And then the other thing that comes up, it actually, it relates to today's show. Thinking back to yesterday, what I talked about with the fraud scheme, and it's like, we got to ask ourselves what is morally right and wrong. Okay, and that ties back into dynamic pricing, and then it connects with a few other things that we've talked about on the show before. When you think about the government, what do you think about? What are your views on the government? Is it there to take care of you and provide for its citizens, or is it for the opportunity to become a big business? Because when you look at it, and I see it, government's become a big business. There's a lot of taking advantage of Americans' generosity, and that is wrong. And we have a lot of work that we have to do in order to make meaningful change. Because I see again, this headline is relating to yesterday's story in Minnesota, but this headline is from CBS News and it says Treasury investigating whether Minnesota welfare money went to Somali terror group. I don't want you or my tax-paying dollars going to Somali terror groups. And so if this is true, this should outrage you because it is not right for this to be happening. And for people to say that we need to get more government or give more involvement or have government get more involved in our daily lives, it's like continuing to increase this problem of how are you going to have accountability there, and uh, how does that help then with if already going back to this fraud scheme relating to COVID, how this was facilitated by our tax-paying dollars. Like that doesn't make sense to me. And so there's a deeper conversation or a bigger conversation needed to be had about taxes is another one, and where certain taxes don't make any sense. I think President Trump last week talked about the potential of having no federal income tax. I mean, that'd be amazing. That'd be incredible. But we got to have more conversations about it. I don't think it's absurd or crazy or out there to be able to say, hey, we've got to have a conversation of what doesn't make sense anymore with all of the all of the schemes that we're seeing out there, stories that are coming out. A lot of things are being revealed, and it can be, as I said before, with the truth, overwhelming, at times shocking, but it can give us peace to understand what is going on and feel like then we can decide how we move forward based off the information that we have. And as small business owners, there are 33 million small business owners out there that employ 45% of the private workforce. That is a powerful voice. And so we've got to unite, continue to move forward, and focus on improving this country, because I love this country and I hope you love this country too. And it's not perfect, but we got to continue to fight for our republic and to move forward and make meaningful change. So we don't have to accept this. I mean, that's the what it comes back to is we do not have to accept this as small business owners and Americans. And relating to dynamic pricing, there is with dynamic pricing and where it's going, there is a question that can come up of transparency, of um, control, and this big brother vibe, especially with AI and the AI algorithms. You having to battle with an AI algorithm, you're not going to win in that. So the history, it's interesting to go back in U.S. history of what the experience has been like. So it hasn't always been fixed price, and price changes based off market demands. Or the marketplace price is going to change. And as I said before, I move towards more a free market capitalism system, but also we've got to ask ourselves in the marketplace, we have choice, and we have we have the decisions that we can make of deciding where we're gonna put our money towards. But you think of now the current situation that we're in. We're, as a country, over $38 trillion in debt. Gen Z is the most in debt generation for their age in the history of the United States. You have the increase in usage of BNPLs. I've talked about buy now, pay later, and there can be this resignation that just we got to go along with how things are. And it's just not true. You get this messaging of like, well, it's going to inevitably happen in this way. So you might as well get on board. And especially as a business owner, when you're constantly trying to adapt to what's going on, you're just like, okay, well, I guess the people are saying we're going to have to do this. So I'm going to have to get on board. And it's not true. There can be alternatives. And actually, there's a really big opportunity here for there to be an alternative relating to dynamic pricing. But first, let's get into the history. So in the US, haggling was experienced a lot in the U.S. for pricing, where you would haggle with the merchant on a set price. So there wasn't like the sticker prices, and you can still experience that in marketplaces like craft shows, farmers markets. In particular, I've experienced that myself in farmers markets, and that can be a fun game because it's two people that are getting into negotiation, and it can be a very powerful skill for negotiation. But that there's two human beings there that are interacting. But then in the 1850s and 60s, the one fixed price became popular, and this was popular with American merchants like John Wanamaker, who had a retail clothing store, Oak Hill. Another one was Roland Hussey Macy, founder of Macy's. But this became really popular during this time. But even before them, and actually Roland Macy was a Quaker, but before that, originally, the one fixed price was introduced by Quaker shopkeepers. It's the early one price policy. And the reasoning for it was religious and moral reasons. Haggling was seen as dishonest and favoring the shop bargainer over the honest and timid customer. And it felt it was un-American. So the fairness there, I think about, not everyone's going to want to go and constantly be negotiating pricing. And so I can understand that. And actually, now going into my when I with moral reasons and for me, my journey in faith and believing in God, uh, the being seen as dishonest, that keeps coming up for me in my gut of like, yeah, it is dishonest. Like you're not setting the price fairly for everyone coming into your store. It's constant negotiations, and that doesn't feel honest. In let's say someone right before you had paid less. For me, I in my gut connect to this feeling of that is dishonest, and then just looking at it, you're like, yeah, if one person's paying one higher price and another person isn't paying the same price and paying a lower price, that does not seem fair. Uh, and there's arguments that are going to be made of like of the fairness around this, but for me, that is not fair, and it's important for us to share that if that's something that you see as well that isn't fair. And with the change, what happened was um, it actually back then in history, you think about it, instead of you having to train all your employees in haggle training, you can just then have a fixed price, and so that can save costs in the training. Then you don't have to hire as skilled workers to get started, and then they don't have to deal for the amount of time that can get wasted in haggling back and forth, like 15, 20 minutes going back and forth on what the price is going to be. So there was a lot of efficiency back there for going into the one price policy. Now, with AI, this is where um, dynamic pricing is having a resurgence coming back in to focus. And with AI, what happens is you have almost no power to negotiate. You're not talking to another human being where there can be a level of respect there, a level of understanding. What happens is instead, it's like, here's a price, and you're just going to have to deal with it. And yes, there can be competition that can come in, and that can help where there's options to choose from. But the question that keeps coming up for me is like, well, is this the right direction that we want to go for our country? Is into the dynamic pricing where, as an example, there are now electronic price tags at grocery stores, and if you were to have a budget set up, and then you go and let's just say in the future, you pick up, uh, you know, let's say you pick up a bunch of red peppers and it says a certain price and you had it budgeted out, and then you literally in real time look back at the price tag and it's increased. What does that do for you? Does that create more certainty? Does that create more predictability? Does that help you to make it easier to budget? Uh, those are important questions to ask ourselves, because what does that then create for more chaos and uncertainty and this powerless feeling? And as businesses get bigger and bigger, it's harder then for as an individual customer to have a voice and accountability. And that's where there's an opportunity here for small businesses to come in and actually show a new path, or not so much a new path, bringing it back to this one price policy, but being able to show alternatives for people that just don't want to don't want to stay in this system of dynamic pricing and don't want to continue to go down that path. And it goes back to respect. It goes back to honesty here and speaking truth and equity, equality with this and simplicity, as well as the fairness. But to help with an example of what's happened here of like relating to privacy, that's the other question that comes up is what privacy is like. There was this story about Target, and it was there was a Forbes headline back in 2012 where it said how Target figured out a teen girl was pregnant before her father did. And so when it comes to AI and the algorithm, uh, there are these online reward programs that can track your buying habits. And you may have experienced that already, signing up for reward programs, but they can be companies can track your buying habits, and therefore, when it comes to being able to know what to provide for you for products and services, even before maybe you even know it, that gets into this question of privacy, gets into the big brother vibes and where this could be going, which comes back to control. And I don't think it's crazy at all to bring that up of control because it goes back to a worldview. If you have this of power in the rest of us, you start to notice where is this becoming. Where do we need to bring this back into balance, and where's it going? Where's the pendulum swinging way too far into the big brother vibes? And I go back to the freedoms that we have as individuals here in this country, and the importance of preserving those freedoms. And so it becomes a slippery slope with this, and we can do something about this as small business owners. So what happened for the story with Target is that an angry man went into a Target outside of Minneapolis, which is interesting, talking about Minnesota, yesterday, but demanded to talk to a manager. And what had happened is he had gotten coupons for baby clothes and cribs that were addressed to the man's daughter. And so he was demanding, like, he didn't know that she was pregnant. And so he was demanding, like, why would you send this to my daughter? But then what happened was afterwards he had a conversation with his daughter and found out that she was pregnant. And so then he called customer service, and I don't know exact quote, but it was like something like, "Oh, sorry, yeah, I didn't realize that she is actually or she's done." Oh man, I forget the wording of it, but it was like something along the lines of like, "Hey, I found out, I didn't know what was going on and what was happening, and my daughter was um, like didn't know that she was pregnant, and so I'm sorry." And but there was like a wording I forgot. Oh, man, for anyone that goes and checks out that headline, please put that in the comments for what the wording was. But um, it gets into then privacy. And with AI and it continuing to become faster and faster in real time with dynamic pricing, and you may have experienced the issues with event tickets, ride sharing, and experiencing a surcharge to airlines for last minute flights, hotels. You may have already experienced the pain of this, and you may not like it, but you may be like, well, I don't know any other alternatives that are coming up. And so this is where it's remembering as a consumer, as an American, you have a choice. You do. It's going to take a little bit more work to figure out those choices. And as small business owners, we've got to come into these over 1,000 industries and be able to provide an alternative. Because again, the problem with the post haggling era back in where it was a human to human is that um, the problem with that of the having to train every single human being to negotiate, and now as companies can just use AI and bigger companies for small businesses, it's an opportunity for you to build trust and predictability for the people that you're serving through your products and services, to be able to have an opportunity to be honest and speak the truth for what the price is. There's an opportunity here for quality, simplicity, fairness. Word of mouth can then occur, and repeat business can happen because if you are meeting the needs of your customers, your clients, and then they experience trust and predictability with you, then they're gonna come back for repeat business, and they can share that with other people. Like there's a high probability of all that happening. And so we've got to continue to have more uh, conversations about this. The other thing that comes up that related to this, and I'm going to put the question out there. And for me, I am curious about it. I want to get your take on this. But is the decline of religion in our country and the emphasis on moral values have any connection with this surge of dynamic pricing. It's something to think about. And it goes back to this question of what is morally right and wrong. Do we have an understanding of that as a country, and a clear understanding of that? Because with AI and dynamic pricing, this is the thing. The seller knows much more about you, much more about your willingness to pay than you know about their costs. And we go back to, is that fair? Transparency. And if you were a small business owner that cares about the people that you're serving through products and services, and you're not here to hide anything, and you're here to be honest, that is a great opportunity then to leverage that in marketing for the trust and predictability, and to show that there are alternatives for how people can um, spend their money. And we need more small businesses to step up with this. And I just think about the truth and how it can give you peace. And when someone is real with you, of letting you know, like, really what's going on and being honest about it, I have a lot more respect for that person. Absolutely. I have a appreciation for them communicating that to me, especially if I can feel that it's coming from a genuine place and a good faith place. That makes me want to support them even more for what they're doing. It creates a deeper connection, and goes back to what we talked about of connection, the importance of having that with between our communities, and being able to care about our future and think about future generations, not just the short term. And there's been a lot of just short term thinking without taking into consideration future just generations. And I've said it before, think with Gen Z being the most in debt generation for their age group in the history of the United States, and just how young people's future were stolen from them, their livelihoods and quality of life. This debt society we built ourselves on, this like try to take as much as you can. And it doesn't mean that the system has to be destroyed. I think about that with capitalism and your freedom to decide how you make a living. But we've got to focus on the moral values, on the question, is this the right direction that we want to go for our country? And then to hold firm and to be there for those that may be more timid of stepping up. Like, we've got to step up as small business owners and lead by example and meet the needs of Americans and provide alternatives. So thank you for your support with this determined movement. It's a growing movement, and I'll see you tomorrow.